Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. I have taken a few days off, which was good and well received. Tonight we are broadcasting a bit earlier than I usually do, and that is simply because I have too much other things to complete tonight. I still wanted to make sure, however, to come here and water this garden, for surely a garden that is watered enough will grow. I thought that tonight we could take sort of a different approach to what I normally cover. It occurred to me that there are an incredible amount of supernatural and paranormal claims in the so-called New Age or spirituality community, psychic community, awakened community, whatever you want to call it. There is a great deal of claims of supernatural things in that community. Equally, I suppose, in communities that are interested in centered around things like ceremonial magic. There are paranormal and supernatural claims. But I think the more that I thought about it, some people in the world just get a pass for making supernatural claims, and that would be the Christian and Catholic churches. There's an incredible amount of paranormal claims, obviously. People who talk to God, people who are sent by God, saints, angels, demons, all that things. Part of my study of the psychic community and the New Age community has always, it appeared to me, involved con men and grifters, fakers, fraudsters, people who claim incredible supernatural and paranormal things, but don't deliver the proof and then take money from people. That sort of thing has always bothered me. But the more I think about it lately, the more I realize that churches are guilty of the same kind of thing. After all, they make incredible claims. One of the claims made by the Catholic Church that I've always found fascinating is this claim of incorruptibility. For those not aware, I grew up Catholic and had over a decade of Catholic school. We are sort of brainwashed into the Bible and Catholic faith and Catholic doctrine. And incorruptibility is just one of those things that you're supposed to believe without question. You're supposed to just have faith and believe it. For those that don't know, this is a claim of the Catholic faith that their saints' bodies are what's called incorruptible, which the definition of which, and you ask, to some, to most, incorruptibility means that the body doesn't rot. The body is as fresh 100 years from the date of death, is just as fresh as the day it died. There are various claims like these bodies emit a supernatural sweet smell, that sometimes they bleed, sometimes they cry. As a young Catholic boy, I was an altar boy, and I was on the fast track to becoming a Catholic priest at one point in my life, believe it or not. Even spent some time at St. Charles Borromeo Seminary. I was incredibly interested in the Catholic supernatural stuff. And upon hearing about this concept called incorruptibility, I had to investigate. I believe I was in 6th grade when I heard about this incorruptibility thing. It was part of a religion class talking about saints. And we were told that the saints' bodies do not rot. I was interested. How can this be? How can it not rot? As a Catholic student, you are then given 100 stories about different incorruptible saints, saints that they dug up 100 years after they were dead, and the body was just fresh. The day it was dug up as the day it was buried. It hadn't rotted. It had not been corrupted. And this is the concept of incorruptibility. So, as a child and a very interested party, I decided I had to see one of these bodies for myself. And this is where the story gets interesting. I happened to grow up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and was shocked and amazed when I asked the priest where the nearest body was. At my church, he told me that it was at St. John Newman's in Center City. I lived just a few miles from Center City, the church where I was taking these religion classes, telling me about incorruptibility, just a few miles, right, from where this incorruptible body was. Folks, I got a bus token. I took an elevated train down Center City as a boy by myself. I didn't tell anybody I was going to go do this. I was afraid my parents wouldn't let me. So I go downtown, I find this huge cathedral, where the body of St. John Newman is supposed to be laying in a glass case inside the altar of this cathedral, this church. Folks, I was so excited, walked up those big steps, a little boy that I was, couldn't wait to see this body, this incorruptible body of St. John Newman. Couldn't believe it. So I entered the church, the cathedral, and curiously, there was almost no one there. There was a few people praying in the back rows of the pews, and there was a huge, wide path up to the altar. And in the distance, I could see somebody laying inside that altar, or what I thought was somebody laying inside the altar, I should say. Then I realized, of course, that there really is a body in there. That priest wasn't lying to me. There's a body inside that altar. This cathedral is huge. I can't tell you, maybe it's 100 feet, maybe even 150 or 200 feet to the altar from the back of the church where I first witnessed this body. I began to slowly walk up that huge path. And the body came closer and closer in view. Then I got to the very front of the church, right? And there would be a step up to the altar. And you're not supposed to go. You're supposed to step up and walk around the altar. But I couldn't help myself. I looked back, and I just saw a few people praying in the back, look around. The doors for every church I've ever seen where the priests come in and out are on the sides of the altar. Checked both. We're good. Is there any priests around here? Not seeing any priests that would stop me. I stepped right up on that, place where the altar was. Got my face right up against this John Newman's face and had the shock of my life. It looked completely, totally like carved fake face. There's no detail in the fake. It was totally smooth, like it had been melted into place. It wasn't real. At least I thought, this can't be real. That's not a real human face. It can't be real. And just then I heard a thundering voice. It was a priest. Say, "Excuse me, and you can't be there." He was down at the church, stepped down, and anyway, priest caught me standing right there and to come down from there. I was scared to death because, priests, authority figures. Uh-oh, and now I'm in trouble. I knew I wasn't supposed to be up there. So I walked over to the priest. "I'm sorry, Father. I'm sorry, Father. I just learned about incorruptibility, and I really had to see this for myself. I had to see it right up close, Father. I had to see it. I had to see it." And the priest said, "I understand. Well, what did you think?" And I said, "It looks fake. That's not real, is it?" The priest took me aside and told me to sit in a pew. And we sat there in a pew for a good 20, 30 minutes. And he told me about how the body of St. John Newman was dug up long after it had been dead for a few decades and was in really good condition for a body that had been dead that long. But it wasn't exactly fresh as the day it was buried. Parts of the skin had rotted, right? Making the face incomplete. Other parts of the body had rotted away or were missing entirely through the test of time or normal human decomposition. And so he didn't quite tell me why, but they still put the body in that altar in this cathedral. And then an artist created a wax mask of sorts to depict the face of St. John Newman. And the fake wax face is placed over the skull, an actual real body, I suppose, is underneath. He said no one would want to see St. John Newman's face in the condition that it really looks. I said I would, and asked him if he could take the mask off and let me see. He wouldn't let that happen. He told me that people weren't meant to see the face, the real face of St. John Newman. This, my friends, has always stuck with me. Why would the Catholic Church knowingly and willingly kind of fudge things and say this body is incorruptible when it's really not? Why would they purposefully attempt to deceive people by making a very pleasant mask, wax mask or face to put around a rotting body that you're claiming doesn't rot? Seems strange to me. I thank the priest for his time, sort of checking as I motioned to leave to see if he was going to say I was in any trouble or say a rosary or something. They always love to make you say the rosary as a punishment. I liked saying the rosary, so for me, it wasn't a big deal. Anyway, I sort of remember thinking, like, am I going to get away here without any rosaries or punishment, or is he going to, am I in trouble? He just kind of said, be safe going home, be careful, or something like that. And I left. Later, I think it was the very next day, I got a hold of the Catholic priest that taught me about incorruptibility. And I said, excuse me, that's not real, at least not St. John Newman's case. And I got punished. I was told to never speak that again. Don't ever talk about that again. How dare you question the Catholic doctrine? You have no right to do that. You have to have faith and just believe. You do not question this Catholic doctrine. But even then, of course, I questioned the Catholic doctrine. Seems strange to me that they could so willingly just lie about the state of many of these bodies. Now later, I would learn that there are some bodies that have zero rotting, zero decomposition, zero decay. At least they appear that way. And in some cases, they do not say anything about a wax mask or help to show the face. I found several other examples where, yes, they will admit they're using a wax face or mask over the decomposing face or the skull. And in an entirely other case, I found where they have an entire body that looks like perfect and beautiful and pristine, right? But then under it, in another case, is just a skeleton. I don't understand these claims. I don't understand. I just don't get it. I don't get how they could make these claims and then just be purposefully, showing people that this is not the case. So, my friends, I continued to look into it despite the fact that I was literally punished for speaking the truth that St. John Newman's body was not perfectly preserved as I had been told or led to believe. And that, my friends, taught me something about Catholic doctrine. Just believe, don't question. But anyway, friends, I thought I would share the screen and just show you some of the most famous examples of these incorruptible bodies. There may be some that are actually not rotting, not decomposing, etc. However, I don't believe that the Catholic Church allows any scientist or medical person to examine these bodies. So I guess we're just going to have faith that these are real and not wax fakes or wax masks or wax face coverings on top of decaying skulls. And let's see if I can find this. One second. This music reminds me of church. I have a problem with that. Science is yet unable to explain them. I have a real problem with that. It's quite a bold statement. Does that look like a real face, or does that look like a sculpture or something? This one does not look real at all to me. This one may be one of the wax fakes. This one, 1917. Friends, there is so many of these. There's like hundreds and hundreds of them, and it's kind of crazy and interesting that they generally are put as altars inside churches, different churches and cathedrals, and become a pilgrimage point. People want to visit that saint and see the incorruptible body of the saint. And this is another one that looks like a wax fake to me. This is supposed to be from 1859. I mean, it almost looks like a puppet to me. This one looks way fake. This one a little more realistic. Looks a little bit like it's mummified. Yeah, this one looks a little more authentic, like the skin dried and it mummified somehow. And this is another one that looks to me like wax or like some sort of fake. Okay, we're gonna stop it there. So there is an incredible amount of these saints that are incorruptible. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are they really bodies that just aren't rotting? Are some of them real and others we have? There is ample and supportive evidence that some of them are wax fakes. So I don't understand, and the Catholic Church doesn't really differentiate, and there's different explanations given. It is just one of those crazy stories. Saints that are incorruptible, saints whose bodies do not rot. And by the way, one of the criteria for whether or not a person can become a saint or not is incorruptibility. They have to see or find that their bodies are in this supposed glorious, holy state of incorruptibility. As for me, friends, having grown up Catholic and thoroughly researched a lot of these individually, more often than not, I found that the caretakers of the incorruptible bodies will admit that they have helped the appearance of the body by masks, wax masks, other, fake hands, instead of showing the real hands, which are rotted and, in a normal state of human decay. And there are several of these that are actually just skeletons that they place, a wax face over and wax hands over the skeletal hands. To me, it's a crazy claim to make that these bodies are in some glorious, holy state of not rotting when they are, and you're using wax and fake stuff on top of a skeleton to try to sell it. I thought a lot about it. Why would they fake these things? And then I started to remember the financial value of pilgrimages. For those that don't know, in many cultures, it is sort of a cultural requirement that you're supposed to make a pilgrimage somewhere. I grew up Catholic and I'm also Polish. So for us, the pilgrimage is to go to Częstochowa and see Częstochowa in Poland. And that is a very, very common among Polish families, no matter where you're at in the world, where your state, sort of poetically would say that the Polish people had been scattered to the winds around the world. And Polish Catholics believe that you have to return to Poland, more specifically to Częstochowa. You have to see Częstochowa. I've never gotten there, but interestingly, there's a replica of Częstochowa like a half hour from my new house. It's the Częstochowa in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Not the same, though. You're really supposed to go to the Polish one. And so maybe someday I'll do that. My point is, pilgrimages are big money. There are basically tourist dollars to be had by these churches and cathedrals, and there's tours and whatever. Many people will just attend mass there where the incorruptible saint's body is, and then give a gift, a financial. You're supposed to give a financial gift to the priests, of course. Yeah, I've always joked it's like Father grab a dollar, right? They're going to grab a dollar, friends. They're going to get a dollar. So these fake incorruptible bodies that they're claiming some kind of paranormal or supernatural reasoning for, that are, wax fakes, are put there so that people come and venerate that place as sort of holy, that people appreciate the priests that run that church and take care of that saint's body and give them a few dollars. This, my friends, may just be the reason why that there is just outright fakery involved with some of these so-called incorruptible bodies. Now, conversely, I have found examples of a few where the churches, cathedrals, resting places, and caretakers of the bodies claim there is no wax help, there is no fake face, that's the actual body. But interestingly, none of them will or have submitted the bodies that are supposedly in these incredibly preserved states, they will not submit to scientific examination. And yet, as we saw in this sort of propaganda, that's a Catholic propaganda video, basically. As we saw in that, they claim that science cannot explain it. Well, maybe science could if you allowed scientists access to study these things. I find that, it's disingenuous at best and outright dishonest to say science cannot explain these things. So, friends, with that, I will turn my total attention here to the live chat. I'm sorry to sort of ramble tonight, but, this has been a personal interest of mine for quite some time. So, I want to know what you guys think. Are these real? Are these all frauds? Maybe a few are genuine? And why would they fake these things in so many cases? Why would they fake faces and hands, etc., or just an entire fake body with a skeleton in another box underneath that fake body? Very strange. What do you guys think? Brad Gray says, but God will protect the pilgrims, of course. Carol Utley says, sin all week, then confess on Sunday. Yeah. And that's the way I grew up. I never understood that concept, but eventually I asked enough priests, and one time a priest gave me a really good answer. And that is, if you just keep doing the same sin over and over and you don't learn from it, I'm not going to absolve you of your sin. And I was kind of surprised. This was in confession. And he said, you've been coming to me every week saying that you're doing this. You're not sorry. You come in here telling me you're sorry, but you're not sorry, and you're not learning that that's wrong, or you wouldn't keep doing it. So I'm not going to forgive you. And I was like scared. Like, does this mean I'm going to hell? This sin won't come off my soul, right? But eventually, he talked to me again at another confession, because I didn't do that thing again for a week, right? And then he said, okay, then you're learning. Then, say 8 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers, and your sins are forgiven. It's like magic. I always thought confession was like magic. Praise God, my sins are all forgiven. I feel good. I got to tell you, you do feel good after confession, though. You kind of admit your faults to another human being, and then he tells you that he's got some direct line to God, and God forgives you, and so does he. It makes you feel good. And that's part of what I guess they sell at the Catholic Church. But confession is something that I do not miss. I still consider myself Christian, but not Catholic. I do not confess my sins to any man. I confess my sins only to God now. I don't believe in intermediaries between God and man. I don't believe in anointed ones that have some better direct line to God than I do. We're all human. Well, friends, we have just a few more weeks of this sweatbox office of mine. I can't wait for it to get cooler. Just a few more weeks. Just got to sweat it out for a few more weeks. Yeah. Brad Gray, how do you sing the Polish national anthem? Is this a Polak joke, Brad Gray? I don't know. I know how to sing Stolat in Polish, but not. I don't even know what the Polish national anthem is. Technically, the church used to open all the time. Mass was said more often. You can make appointments with the priest for confessions. Yeah, that's basically the way. Well, in my church, the way that it went is that confession was at a set time, like Saturday at 2 p.m., and you would go to the church and everybody'd sort of wait in line. There usually wasn't, for as huge a church as it was, they would put like 4 or 5 priests in there. There wasn't that long a line. You can get in and out in 20 minutes. Well, depending on how many sins you had to confess, right? Jeanette Krasenko, I didn't know you were Polish. Absolutely, yeah. Half Polish. I'm actually half Polish and half Irish, and that is a dangerous combination. My mother used to say I was half drunk and half stupid. It's nice. Genocide says I'm pagan, and I like it. Stephen Ronan says I hated confession. Yeah, I don't know. I I I find the concept of doing that so alien to me now. Like, but I was Catholic for, my whole life through high school. So I guess I did that a lot, right? And then eventually I kind of fell away from the Catholic faith, and I didn't feel bad about not going to confession. But then once I got really drunk and went to confession at it was like the day after, I don't know, maybe it was Easter morning or something like that. Don't ask me why, but I got drunk as a motherfucker. And then I got like the crying drunks, and I was like, sort of like, like regretful of things while I was really, really drunk. And there happened to be a church, so I went in there and went to the priest and like had this drunken, ranting confession. And I just remember him telling me, like, it's okay, Jesus loves you, you need to go sleep it off. He knew I was drunk because I was like slurring my words and shit. It's such, that's going to be a movie scene someday. Me drunk off my ass, confessing like 10 years worth of sins to some poor fucking priest, right? He was just like, oh shit, here's another drunk. This guy must be Irish, right? Or oh no, it was the day after St. Patrick's Day. That's what day it was, not Easter. The day after St. Patrick's Day. So I had this bender, crazy Irish bender, and then I went to confession the next day, like a good Irish Catholic. Well, a good Polish Irish Catholic, whatever. Funny stuff. Steve Ronan says I haven't gone since sixth class. Yeah, I guess what are you gonna do? I like the old gods, Norse mostly. I can't get into Abrahamic religions. I don't know, Genocide. That stuff seems like weird to me. Like Thor and Odin, you mean? Like those kind of Norse gods? Stuff seems crazy to me. Maybe because I read it in comic books. But then again, Catholic doctrine is even crazier, like this guy came and then he died on a cross and then he, was resurrected. It's just like as crazy as the stories of Thor and Odin, I suppose, right? And Loki. Did you hang on to the shame around sex? I don't think so, Steve Ronan. I don't. Well, first of all, I'm married now, so there's really no shame whatsoever. And if you're in a committed relationship, but even if I had a girlfriend, I didn't feel any shame around sex as long as her and I had an understanding. And no, I didn't. I mean, maybe a little bit when I was younger. You feel that like I gotta throw my clothes on and get out of here. Like you almost feel like you did something wrong, right? They kind of brainwash you into believing that sex outside of marriage is some major sin, and you're going to go to hell if you do that. So it's kind of like hormones versus the priests in your head when you're 14 and 15 and starting to experiment in those ways. There's a lot of Poles in Ireland and England. It's the second number nationality there. I did not know that, Jeanette Krasenko, but it makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Carol Utley says, my grandparents were 100% Swedish. Genocide's a Celtic Viking. I've never heard someone describe themselves as a Celtic Viking, but okay, Genocide. Yes, Carol, I believe this. There's some truth in all myths and legends. Stephen Ronan, me neither, but sometimes it would pop up. Yeah, I suppose so. And six is design. Evidently, you will go to hell for anything and everything you do. It's ridiculous. I don't know how people can believe in that stuff so blindly. Yeah, I mean, you get brainwashed, sixes. You get an hour of listen to us tell you about our religion every day for over a decade. It starts to grain on you, I guess, and wear away your reasoning ability, and it's sort of like a group dynamic. Like it's just easier to surrender and go, yeah, this is what I believe, you know. Later, you may sort of second guess that belief, like I did, and come to your own conclusions about what you were taught. But I gotta say that the Catholics were amazing at educating me. I wouldn't trade that education for anything. You know, they do a good job, so much better than public school. To go to a Catholic school was a privilege because they're known to be incredibly good educators. And I don't mean just religion, I mean all. You know, they would have like, you know, very, very educated people teaching each subject, especially when you got to high school. You know, they would have somebody that was an expert at algebra teaching algebra, expert at social studies teaching that, and so on and so on. And so you were almost forced to get a great education. Carol Utley, my other side came from Ireland. Yeah, I'm a half-breed Irishman too. I don't even know the Bible, only what other people preach. Yeah, I got a lot of scripture study, so I happen to know the Bible very, very well, I think. Oh, and I forgot. I wanted to thank Jean Claude from Beyond Mystics. Of course, he's not here now, but uh, I'm half blind, for those that don't know. So I saw that Jean Claude at Beyond Mystic had these banners going by like ticker tape at the bottom of the screen. And I go, wow, that's awesome. I got to find out how you do that. And I thought it was a very, very complicated process, but it turns out that there's this button that my half blind stupidness did not see that says banners. And you just click one of these banners and write whatever you want to write. So, with that being said, now we have these banners to beg, you know, to do my begging bowl, begging for money thing. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, please do. If you want to see our show continue, links in the About section of our channel. So now, hopefully, I can beg less and just leave that up there on the screen. Maybe it's a subliminal message that will affect people and make them send me their money. That would be funny. Uh, and of course, I have multiple of these, like send us money, you leeches, make a PayPal donation. And here's how to make the PayPal donation. Be sure to include your PayPal, or excuse me, your email, your chat room ID, not email, your chat room user ID, so that I will know who it came from in the live chat. 1 second here. And of course, I get tired of saying this too, so we also have this one now. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please send our channel address to some friends. It would be very, very helpful and beneficial if we could get some support. There's a few ways to support us. Of course, the first is, of course, financial through either PayPal or Patreon. I understand if you don't have a few bucks. So another way that you can support us is to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, we all know people that are interested in these strange subjects. Please, if you have friends, send our channel address to some friends. Ask them to come and join us in this journey called Truth Seekers. I would sincerely appreciate your help and support to try to grow the show. So, friends, there was one other thing, I guess, one other thing that I was going to just share, and that is the St. John Newman body. I just going to share, I guess, okay, here we go. Okay. I just wanted to show you guys what the body that I saw as a child, which, by the way, it's still there. It's called the St. John Newman Shrine in Center City, Philadelphia, and you can go visit it. 1 second. There we are. So this is St. John Newman, and I don't know if we can get a better get a better picture. Yeah, there we go. And you can see, friends, it looks so smooth and sort of fake that I recognized it instantly, even as a child, as just fake, you know? One second. Yeah, so this is the view that I saw, super up close. And, oh, wait a minute. Let me try to get back there. There we have, this is him in life, of course, and this is a fresco or a painting, I believe, all in the St. John Newman Shrine. Here are some, I'm not sure where that, oh, this is just some other pictures, sorry. So that is the major shot that I could share. Oh, maybe St. John Newman doesn't want me sharing this. There we go. There we go. Let's get back to this. Why is it not sharing? Oh, okay, wait a minute. Let me try this again. There we go. Jeez, I didn't realize. I'm sorry, friends. I was off another screen, and this is what I was seeing. But the share screen doesn't follow to the next tab. So this is the view of what it is that I saw there at the shrine as a child, and it really looks fake. And this, of course, is St. John, a depiction of him alive that is a painting in a fresco there in the shrine, in the cathedral in Center City. So 1 second. Now we're going to get caught up here with the live chat. Yeah, Jeanette Krasenko, I absolutely love Bernadette. So peaceful. Yeah, I think that Bernadette is my favorite as well. And then I guess my second favorite is St. John Newman because I've seen it in person. And it was just sort of like, it was so weird to me to realize, even as a child, that the Catholic Church was kind of faking something. And that made me start to question a lot of different things about the Catholic doctrine, I suppose. And so to this day, I count that journey down to see that dead body as a good day in my life. Stephen Ronan, I used to make up stuff to confess. You know, I did the same thing, especially when I got to be like a teenager, because you don't want to tell a priest that you're messing around with a girl or hooking up with a girl or like, you know, you got to second base last week, or, you know, and they were pervy. They would ask you if you were doing that stuff. I think they liked hearing those stories. But yeah, so I had a set thing. Like I had a whole spiel. Like I was late to mass. I was 10 minutes late to mass, and it's my fault, Father. I was just selfish, and I wasn't paying attention to the time. I should have given that time to God. I was disrespectful to my parents, and I cursed a bunch of times. Oh, when I talked smack behind my brother's back because, you know, yeah. And then they would give you like just real quick penance, like a few prayers, and you were done. Because if I always worried, if I told that priest what I really have been up to, I'll be here saying rosaries until next week. So yeah, which makes the whole sacrament kind of totally ineffectual if you're not actually telling the priest the truth. And Steve Ronan, I knew like at least half the kids just made shit up and lied. We didn't tell them exactly what we were really doing. And again, they would force you to go. You had to go do this every week. Oh, there is Paranormal Jiggy is now in the house. You missed the creepy dead people, Paranormal Hood Jiggy. You missed the creepy dead people. But it's okay because Paranormal Hood Jiggy educated me about something, and Paranormal Hood Jiggy is on, what is it called? BPT, right? Black People Time. Paranormal Hood Jiggy's on Black People Time. You cannot blame a brother for being on Black People Time and showing up 45 minutes late or something, because that's just Jiggy, and it's all good. Oh, CPT, color people time. That's what it is. Paranormal Hood Jiggy. I'm not colored, but I suffer from this myself. I just cannot get to where I'm supposed to be. I tell my wife stuff sometimes, like, yeah, we're gonna leave for the cabin around noon. It's like 3:30, and I'm still like, all right, all right. Yeah, friends. So I should monitor this PayPal just in case anybody does actually. 1 second, friends. I'm working on these free gifts that we're going to have. And so far, we have rosaries, and that's about it. But I have other things on the way, and we'll be rolling that out shortly, I suppose. And again, tonight's broadcast is early because I have an incredible amount of things that I'm trying to finish. The good news is that this month there will be another Mind Hack demo, and all the Patreon supporters, of course, get it for free. Well, really for free. Got to sign up for Patreon, which is $1 a month. That's going really, really well. I'm excited to be able to share that with people soon. And I'm not sure what else is going on. We're getting mood rings and this Bob Lazar Element 115 replica, which is really just a little square, or I'm sorry, a little triangle that's painted, and it looks cool and it glows in the dark. So fun and prizes will soon await our PayPal donators. And of course, to the Patreon people, we're going to be doing another Mind Hack demo, which you get. That's part of the benefit. And I'll be doing a backstage pass, audio journal, and a few other gifts for the PayPal, or excuse me, for the Patreon people this month. And I sincerely appreciate the Patreon people. They really do. They really do help to keep the show rolling on. We don't need to make a mint here, but it's nice to have a few dollars if I need a microphone or a cable or whatever it is that I need to be able to do that. It's very nice. So I want to take a moment to thank those Patreon people and to invite new people to sign up. 1 second, friends. Okay, friends, so that's my begging bowl speech for tonight. We're going to go back to the live chat, see if we have anything here for me. Ronan, I sometimes work by a Catholic church. I see nuns all the time. I just want to give the finger and yell, not today, sir. Well, listen, here's what I will tell you about Catholics. That sometimes Catholics get a bad rap. Are the priests greedy? Hell yeah. And can you trust them? You cannot trust the administrators of churches or Catholic schools because they have their own agendas and their own reason for doing everything. You can't trust them, but there are some extremely good priests and brothers and nuns that I grew up with and were educated by. And I think that by and large, there are many, many really good hearted Catholic people. So you can't sort of paint with a broad brush. Has anyone ever had problems with Patreon? My password is screwed up. I want to donate. Oh, thank you, Carol. I would appreciate that. You could reset your password. I think Patreon has an option, and they'll send you a link to the email that you signed up for the Patreon with in order to get your account back, I suppose. Oh, there was no audio on that. I had none in the hospital as a child. She was wonderful to me. Yeah. Besides educating people, there were also a great deal of Catholic run Catholic run hospitals. My firstborn son, uh, he was born in a Catholic hospital, and my wife went to the she went to Holy Family University, which is a Catholic college that is well respected across the country as an incredible educational institution. It's right up there with one of the best schools in the country. And yeah, my wife, I don't know, she graduated with honors. I think she had almost a 4.0, and she just under a 4.0, and she was really pissed because some professor blew her 4.0 right before she graduated or something. But their Catholics are known for being incredibly good educators and also for running hospitals and, of course, missions and things. But I think that the Catholic Church had way too much power. We see that as evidenced by some scandals that they've had. Um, and they have spent a huge amount of money to try to cover the scandals up and roll on with their Catholic future. Um, I don't know. Most people that I know that grew up Catholic are no longer Catholic. I don't know how those churches are surviving. I know many of them are closing, well, most of the smaller ones. When I grew up as a child, we had 4 or 5 different grade Catholic grade schools that were connected. There was a church and there was a grade school, and there were 4 or 5 of them, maybe 6 even, in my neighborhood in Port Richmond. And later, when I was an adult, there was only one that consolidated all those grade schools down to one school, which happened to be the one that I went to as a child. That was the biggest one, and that was called St. Adalbert's in Philadelphia. And St. Adalbert's had its own share of the sort of scandals because one of the pedo priests, a few of the pedo priests named by the Catholic Church as being taken out of priestly service because of allegations, went to St. Adalbert's. Or one of them was the actual Monsignor, which means the head guy in charge of the whole church and school. He got named as a pedo or a possible pedo. I don't know what happened. I don't think that he was prosecuted. Most of them aren't prosecuted. And the other one got transferred to another school. And then he did get prosecuted, hung jury both times. So, yeah, there's a hell of a lot of scandal, even just the church that I grew up in, which is crazy. And I hear stories from people all over the spectrum, all over the world, all over the country that had similar kind of pedo scandal priests in the church that they grew up in. And that's got to affect the future of the Catholic Church. I mean, how do you trust them after that? I don't know how anybody could trust them after that, but I don't want to bash anybody that's Catholic. I think, there are benefits to everything. And if you just take the morality teachings, I suppose, and the love thy neighbor and the great stories about Jesus and how you should live your life, hey, sure, there's probably a great deal of benefit to Catholicism for me. Yeah, man, now is the same around here now as well. The church has lost a ton of money. Not only money, Solar Marshall, I believe that they've lost an incredible amount of influence. They had so much more influence over neighborhoods, over people, uh, you know, before that scandal hit. And now it's just like decimated them. I think a lot of people that were imagine if you were on the fence about this whole being, do I want to keep being Catholic or not? And then that stuff hits, and you're like, and then you're hearing that they paid out millions and millions, millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in legal settlements to the victims of some of those scandals, and money's still being paid out today to those victims. Uh, and with each of the, by the way those payouts usually work is that the victim has to take the money and then sign an NDA, which is like a non-disclosure agreement. So here, take this money, and then don't tell anybody about you know, Father so and so taking you in the rectory and doing whatever he did to you. And I don't understand that how any of that stuff that happened with the Catholic Church is legal, right? You just can pay off a victim, and then you don't have to face criminal charges for those acts. And they never, up until recently, they did not report those things to the police, which is the normal. That's what you're supposed to do. And so, it's just this whole situation is crazy with that, because it's like, these are the moral and, these are the godly and moral authorities, right? And they're doing things that are so dishonest, even just taking into account the way they try to cover it all up and pay people off is incredibly dishonest. And again, the moral authority, so the hypocrisy of it has affected many, many Catholics who have become, like me, recovering Catholics. But tonight's subject was really, Adam Mine says, my twins were born in a Catholic hospital. One of them had a real rough start. The nuns wanted me to give her last rites. I had them both moved to a different hospital. How horrible of them to assume. Yeah, I don't know, Adam Mine, though. Last rites does not always mean that they think that person's going to die. They just want to cover their bases, right? It's disgusting. They covered it up because God forgives. And Soren Marshall says you can't trust them. Yeah. I somehow forgave the Catholic Church for all that stuff and let my firstborn son go to, I guess it was like maybe pre-kindergarten or kindergarten at a Catholic school. And they really, really, they made me very angry because my son has special needs. They threw him out in the middle of the year knowing that we couldn't get placement and that he would lose half of the school year. Right? And he had a one-on-one. How difficult could he be? There was a person from the state who sat next to my son in this Catholic kindergarten, and they still threw him out. And this was right after the Pope had given a speech about being inclusive of autistic children and autistic families, because it's not the autistic child's fault that they were born that way. We have to include them. We are all God's children, right? And right after that, the principal throws my son out. A principal who wasn't even at the school for the entire 6 months. So like a vice principal at the school decided to throw my son out of it's kindergarten. And I get it. My son's autistic. He was somewhat disruptive. He would get up. He wouldn't just sit there like the kids, and the one would have to redirect him and keep putting him back in the chair. And yeah, he was not easy to deal with. But where's your Christ-like compassion for my autistic son? Ed at school had gotten a $10,000 grant to help their special needs programs. That's one of the reasons we decided to send our son there. Well, they just got $10,000 to help with their special needs programs for special needs children, and then they throw our son out of the school. If you notice, most every church has impeccable stonework, like flawless. That costs money. They are non-profit. How do they afford such work? You got to be in the back room counting the cash at an average Sunday. I was an altar boy, so I got to see them counting the money sometimes. Like if the late mass, which was like 11:30 or 12, right? On a Sunday, there would be multiple masses, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. I mean, it was a racket. You'd fill that church up. Everybody would be throwing money in those baskets, and then it would all go into the back where the priests were. And so as an altar boy, I got to see them counting this money. And it was bags full, like trash bags full of cash. And I mean, after it was sort of organized and wrapped and stuff in wrappers. They would wrap the ones, the fives, the tens, and they would just throw it all in a trash bag. I couldn't believe it. And yeah, so they just get to collect all this money, and they don't have to pay taxes on any of it. I got to figure this out, how I was able to do that. Steve Ronan, we had a pedo teacher in secondary school, and he used to always massage my shoulders, and I never knew that he was really doing it. I found out he gassed himself to death in his car a year after I left. Wow. Yeah, one of the guys were very troubled, and yeah, they would be too touchy. We had one that I was warned about was too touchy, and my father sort of warned him, like, my son has to serve mass with you. Don't touch him, or something like that. So church now is all about making some fat ped priest rich. I don't believe any church actually forgot, to be honest. Well, yeah, maybe you're as cynical as I once was. I kind of come back around that, there's some benefit to Christianity, and you can't paint with such a broad brush. You really have to take, I don't know, I just want to take each person as an individual. That was an epic watch, Stephen. She had some balls, and it ruined her. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about Sinead O'Connor. Yeah, I remember that. There was a big controversy about that. Never had the pleasure to see how much they actually collect, but they give you devil eyes if you don't toss something in. Yeah. Jesus loves you, Six's design. Jesus loves you, but he always needs money, right? Jesus loves you, Six's design, but he always needs money. Kind of like me. I always need money, right? So I'm going to pass the collection plate around, and you people can all just give me money. We could call this church, right? I'll get a nonprofit status going, so I don't have to pay taxes. Every once in a while, I'll throw in some wisdom of, some spiritual wisdoms. Sounds legit. People paid for their sins with cash. My father did. Yeah, that's another scam. For a while, they were selling people tokens to heaven. You too can go to heaven. You just got to buy this pass from the Pope. Popes do that. They sold passes to heaven to people for a certain amount of money. Carol Utley, she was practically homeless and living in some kind of halfway drug house here in the States. Not sure if that is still the case for her, poor dear. Yeah, I don't know. I heard that she was having some kind of problems, but I didn't really keep up or follow if she's okay. I hope that she is. I'll pray for her. Well, friends, I mentioned that I have a great deal of things that I got to do later today, so I think we are gonna wrap things up here for today. One of the reasons I wanted to cover this subject of incorruptibility is because I'm going to be revisiting some Christian and Catholic mysteries. One of them is Padre Pio. He's one of the people that have said to have an incorruptible body. His looks real though, and many have told me that his is a genuine case of incorruptibility, where they do not use wax masks, any kind of help. His body is just perfectly preserved that way. Padre Pio also has stigmata, which is, for those that don't know, a phenomenon where a holy person will be gifted. I don't know how you could call this a gift, but they call it being gifted with the crucifixion wounds of Christ on their hands and feet. And these stigmata wounds would bleed at various times. And in Padre Pio's case, he could perform miracles, heal the sick, even terminally ill people. So I wanted to sort of do this show just to sort of explain this incorruptibility principle of Catholicism before we get to the next show. I think we'll do that next, which is the Padre. We're going to do a show all about this Padre Pio, because it is an incredible and mysterious story. And well, friends, it's been a long day. It's going to be a long night for me, but I will be back tomorrow night I hope no one minds that we try to do an earlier time tonight. Uh, Things happen. I'm just going to have to adjust. I wanted to make sure that I did come here and give this time every day that I can. I thank you all for joining us and invite you back tomorrow night, where I believe we're going to be discussing the bizarre case of Padre Pio. Until next time, friends, my name is Stephen Cambion. God bless and good night.